Hi, welcome back to my channel. It's been a while. I know I haven't posted anything in about a week. Um, I was going through some stuff, but welcome to my channel. My name is Jose. I am what I'd like to coin a micro astrologer. So today's thing, I wanted to keep it super simple. Well, I'll try. There are some people who want to look back into like the past or the future. So they want to go into the past lives, which is actually very interesting. So sometimes we want like, I don't know, because I've met people who are curious about it. They do readings on all that stuff. But did you know you could do that also with astrology? You can actually learn about it. It's not just under what's called evolutionary astrology. It's actually through like the nodes, but it's actually through other stuff too. There's different ways. Okay, so I'll give you an example. What we'll do is we'll go through my chart. Okay. I'll show you my screen. So I'm showing you my chart a million times for those who have been watching my channel. But here we go. Here we go. Here we go. All right. Okay. So there's a way around this. So first of all, usually in a basic chart, sometimes you might not have a planet conjunct, what's called like conjunct again. If you don't know, it's two bodies. Like usually it's in the inner circle that come together. Okay, give or take what's called give or take like an orb of, let's say, 8 degrees. It depends on the planet. Like the personal planets, like the sun, the luminaries, sun and the moon are luminaries. Mercury up to Mars, those are also personal planets. They have wider orbs. So what I mean by orb is that, for example, if you look at here, 1727 here, those are degree numbers. So it goes counterclockwise, right? So you go that way. It's in Aquarius. South node is not conjunct here, not only because there's no line in between here, there's no S aspect line, it would be red in astro.com, but also because it's too much. It's 10-degree difference. So that's the orb, okay? But if it was about 28 degrees, depending on the minutes, those are the smaller numbers, those are minutes, then it depends. They might calculate it. Some sites will sometimes make an exception for above that, like if it's like say the sun or something, or if it's actually let's uh Philip Sedgwick, he uses a wide orb when it comes to the black holes. So the great attractor, the super attractor, the there's four main ones that have been discovered. Technically, they're clusters. Well, I've got the astronomy behind it. But anyways, they have wider orbs. So they go up to like 12 degrees, which is huge because it's like, oh, wow, you can encompass many things there. There's so many other bodies or planets or points. Points, when I say points, I mean like the angles, for example, the angular houses, ascendant, descendant, nadir, IC, midheaven, MC. Right. So um, those are points, but it could also mean like the lunar nodes here. Remember, I noticed how I said lunar nodes, lunar, so it belong to this the moon. But anyways, there are other points too, like for example, uh, what is that one called? Pot of fort, a port, something of fortune. I forgot. It's used in Arabic astrology way long time ago. I think it was 3,000 years ago. It started then, approximately. And part of fortune. There you go. Part of fortune. And there are other points too, like vertex. Vertex is a point. Well, I call it a point because that's what it is. It's not really a planetary body. It's not a luminary. It's not a personal planet. It's not an interpersonal planet. It's not an outer planet. It's not dwarf planets. It's not centaur. It's not. They're not fixed stars. They're not black holes. They're actually just points. They're mathematical points. I think vertex is too. The point is, when it's conjunct a certain thing, specifically what I wanted to talk about, which is like the south node, what happens is you have things. Let's say the moon was conjunct to south node here. That means it would include things that describe like the moon. It would be like emotions, mothers, motherly figures. Um, what else is there? Something to do with water, boats, ships, harbors, magnetism, like this ability to this thing. I think you can call it the auric field, but I don't think it's the auric field. It could be, but it's that energy, like your magnetic field. Let's call it that way. It also rules again, of course, emotions, basic needs, necessities, needs basically. It also rules the soul. So it's also about the soul. Um, so many things. So if it was that, there's something to do with like the mother. You could state that you were a mother, or you had some kind of relationship with motherly figures, or there was something about motherhood. Then you look at the sign, of course. My South Node is in Aquarius, so I have all these technical gifts, very scientific, very of the mind, very much like intellectual, very much like this is why I'm good at these things. Like I see geometric stuff. People tell me all the time in readings, like well, not all the time. People have said to me that when you do readings for me, like psychic readings, they've told me that I have like I understand geometry. That's why I understand these things. Although I never really liked math, like at least when I didn't get a good grade, but that was back then. I don't care about grades. Grades mean nothing to me. Um, that's for another story. So when it comes to past lives, usually the South Node is what you look into. However, there is a way to go about this, and I'll show you one of them. Past lives could also probably be kind of like the fourth house, by the way. Um, it could indicate more like your ancestry, not so much past lives, but yeah, kind of, but not really past lives like your past lives, but more like your connection to your lineage. There is another way to go about that. There are other planets that talk about past lives, asteroids, that is. So if you'd like to know what they are, message me in the comment below. There are lots of asteroids that talk about past lives. Yeah. So if you're curious about those, this will show you. If you're interested in past lives, yeah, there are asteroids that dictate that, or that rule over the past lives. Let's see here. So what we would do is you look at a progression, but in this case, what's called a reverse progression. So you would just go to a progress chart. Okay, you would look at natal and progress chart here. And then you would go back to before the time it was born. So I would go, let's say, maybe 100 years before I was born, let's say. Okay, so 1800s. Let's just go with October 1. Okay, you'll see what I mean when I show you this one. It looks kind of weird. For me, it looks weird, right? So that means it's pulled back 100 years earlier or more than 100 years. So this is where you can just dictate how much of that has progressed. But that could also, this is like what's called a secondary progressions. Apparently, I was also told that you can do what's called the tertiary solar arc. Yeah, the solar arc progression. But in this case, it'll be, yeah. And this will show how you behaved in the past. And you would read it as if you are reading a progression chart. So that means, so let's say, um, mm, you would just say, let's say, back then I had wounding in a different life where I had wounding with, um, my wounding was in Scorpio. So it was about power. I didn't really have power in a certain past life. My career, my vocation was focused on, um, I would say it was focused on family life, right? So here it's more about my core beliefs, but MC is right here, right? So that would be the opposite. So what I would have, actually, let's see if I have, they even show IC here. Am I not seeing it? They don't. Usually MC and IC are actually opposite of each other. So 2 degrees Scorpio. Then we look at 2 degrees right here. It's actually by the sun here. So that means that in the past life, that's how it was. This is where it gets a little kind of tricky. I am not sure if it's secondary charts or solar progression charts that dictate which one would be more applicable? I would say I wouldn't. Could use the solar arc, but what happens in the solar arc? It looks basically like your same placements. It's the same placements you have in your chart, except just kind of switched around. It's almost like doing like an astrocartography chart, where you look at the map and then you look at places you want to go to and you compare which, if you want to go to this place, and you see which is highlighted in any of the angles. So the angles again, ascendant, descendant, IC, MC. Those are important points in. For those who don't know that, those are important parts in our life, significant moments in our life. So your birth, your awareness of yourself, your connection to a relationship, like how you see yourself in a relationship as you and together, and how you see yourself, or rather how people see you. That can be technically ascendant, but ascendant is more like you coming from you. MC midheaven is more about what people assess you to be, what they feel you should be. So I would go back in Astrology, I would change it to, instead of a solar arc, I would go back to the natal progressions, not the progress chart itself. So secondary progressions is what it's called. So now it shows me, right, 1800. So here, I have basically had the same placement with this, with Uranus here, right? Pluto was pulled up a little bit, right? So what I could say is that, let's see here, my sun was in Taurus, so I was quite stubborn when I was in when it came to like my career. I was stubborn. But again, I don't know what houses they're in. So if you're looking at a natal plus a natal progression chart, you would look mostly at the what's called like the progressional aspect. So here there's an aspect between my past life Chiron, which in there. So back then I didn't really have a lot of wounding when it came to material stuff, but I did. And I feel like when I came into this life, there's just like a soul. So I did promise that I would keep it simple, but I realized, oh, that's not gonna work. So forget it. Um, so Mercury, I was more aggressive with my voice. That's communication. I was very much like a flirtatious person. That's the general thing. But again, we don't know what houses these are in, or these were in. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the progress chart itself, where it's going to show me where the houses were, what I was back then. So you see how it looks completely different now. It's almost like, whoa, where did it go? So I still had my sun in the fourth house. I didn't really shine, but my wounding was in the family. See, I thought it was in the 10th house, but actually it's in the fourth house. So my moon was, I was very much, I had issues with connecting with people, especially with my father. There was a separation between father and mother. So they didn't really get along, my parents back then, whoever they were. Um, and also I had issues with careers, which is that I feel like, did I learn my lesson? If I were to look at that, did I learn my lesson? I mean, I'm looking at it here. Look at this, Leo, North Node, Leo. But there was anger tied to that. That's Mars. And there's a Jupiter was tied to that. So there's this whole expansion of that pride. So I feel like this is why I feel like maybe I didn't learn my lesson. So let's look at the finance. Okay, so South Node, I knew how to work with finance back then, so I was very skilled, which kind of explains this is for an earlier past life, the South Node. So this is the past of the past, if that makes sense. Right. So in earlier lives beyond this one, this shows that my South Node, right? This shows my South Node was in Aquarius. It's actually in the critical degrees, 27 degrees. So that means there was a very strong pull towards that. Like I suppose that I had a lot of transformation that I had to do, but I don't know where I had to. Okay, here we go. So this shows me that my Pluto is square my ascendant back then. It was still in Libra, but it was retrograde, so I didn't really know what power was. This actually really makes sense why in this life I'm learning about true power instead. Not power in the sense that we think it is, right? True power. So this is why I've had the experience of learning about myself, because back then I didn't really have that. It was more about power. Didn't really know about power with my academic stuff. So here I came to learn this life that it's like I'm very much knowledgeable of a lot of things. I've gained a lot of wisdom from the experiences, from the trauma, all that stuff that it's like I've become aware of. Because back then I was it was retrograde. Look at that, into 1800s, right? October 1, 1800s. I mean, we don't know exactly what date to look at, anyways, to be honest. But if you're curious about a specific date, let's say you do psychic stuff or you do like past life regression, if you ever get a date and you hear it and you work with your clairaudience, for example, or whatever clairs you work with, and you get a certain date. Even if you use like boggle pieces or domino, what do you call that? A domino dice. I don't speak English. So, and you if you get a certain date, maybe if you get a specific date, I don't know, because I have one way to do it. Like if you get dice and you roll them up and you use them instead of using like shaking them and tossing them just randomly, because they're not going to know, you're not going to know which order they're in, right? But if you can do it one by one, great. What I would suggest is if you maybe what will help it is instead of just getting a dice, instead of being completely random in terms of dates. Because I feel like strongly that when you use dice, what happens is that when you, let's say you, I'll give you an example. So I don't know if you'll be able to see this. So I have like these dice here. It's in a little small bag. I don't know if you can see that. So you grab one of these and you have whatever you don't seed it, right? And you grab one of them and you go, you drop it. Whatever drops is like, see, this one came out two. Two came out for this one. You don't know if you can see that. Right. So, but then if you start with that number and if you start with, let's say, a date, that could be February, right? The next one, February 1. I'm getting a 1 here, February 1. And then we go into the year. 2. So now they're showing me 2. So that shows that because of the year, it would show like, it would, to me, that would mean like in the 2000s, unless it means 2000 BC or BCE, whatever you chose. Okay, so then I'm going to drop it again. I'm just going to let that fall and see what we got there. 3. So 23, right? 4. It's an interesting number that came on. Sorry, 34 is significant for me. It has become. I'm not going to share it right now. I know why. And so 2, 3, 4, 6. So in probably in BC 24, 24, 36. So if we were to do that, and because we're doing progressions, we're not going to get time. So I'm going to try and test that. 23, 46. I probably want to go into Julian before. Here. So see, this is now BCE. This is in the BCs. Okay. Look at that. Whoa. Did I do that correctly? Let's see here. It feels, sorry, this is literally like about, what is it, 3,000 years ago. So what does this show me? That based on the progressions that I had, I feel like I've kind of, I was really heavy with the insecure about my communication back here. Look at this. Pluto Sun still. Okay. Mars square Uranus, a lot of anger issues. But what was I doing? It was still Aries. So it's almost looked like my own chart, like my own birth chart of this life. But look at the numbers. 27 is Cancer. It's almost like it went like it kind of repeated itself. But in this case, now my South Node was in. So you can also do interpretations of how what this means for you in this life. It's like what lessons did I learn back then that I can look at today, right? You look at both what I call I didn't really learn this, but you have the natal chart inside plus the progressed planets outside this one. Okay. And then you compare like what aspects do you see there. So this is kind of like progression stuff. When you get into progressions, you'll understand what I mean by this. So the point I'm making is that we don't have to go too much into detail with this one. So the point I'm making really is that there's so many ways to go around with astrology, and I'm really biased with astrology. Um, you can almost find anything with astrology. Now it's a little bit more left brainy. Some people they find it fun, especially for those who are very strong, who have strong Pisces or water uh, signs or fire as well, but also Neptune. These people tend to like they don't. It's hard to kind of resonate with the left brain a little bit too much, but they can. You just have to put effort to it. But you know, that's not a Neptune thing. So depending on the placement of the sign in the houses. Anyways, I just wanted to share that. That's an example, like or a bunch of examples of how you can go into past lives. The really one thing I wanted to really say is just sometimes you don't need to remember past lives like to access it because there are people who like or even future lives. You can do astrology instead. You can sort of cheat if you want. But some people kind of like, ooh, cheating is bad. Well, we do it all the time. We do languages, getting the grammar, getting the answers, translation. That's cheating because you're not waiting for nature to take place to do its thing. That's for another time, though. Okay, it's called language acquisition. It goes back into the natural ways of acquiring, picking up language, just as we've done for the past 100,000, 10,000 years more. Right, very natural. Instead, we for the past 600 years or so, we've been conditioned to especially through academia, to be like, let's do the grammar first. Let's break things down. Da, da, da. Anyways, so I don't agree with that shit. So, but anyways, it doesn't work for me. That's why. But if you want to rack your brain and you overuse your short-term memory, by all means, go ahead and waste another 10, 20, 20, 50, 60 years, 100 years of your life trying to force that in. And even if you have good memory, you're like, oh, you know, that's not really real fluency. So anyways, I digress. That's ranting. But the point is, yeah, so there are many things that I find that is very much can be done through astrology. Cheating is one of them here because it's not really cheat. It's just like the point is the reading. When I was ranting there a bit, when it comes to language acquisition or fluency, the point is not getting the answer. The point is the opposite, kind of the opposite. The point is fluency, but how do you get fluency through the subconscious? Anyways, so there's different tools for different ways of different things. Like we are a tool, everything. I keep digressing. Thank you for watching. That was kind of a lot, right? Wasn't it? How long did that go? I don't know. 20 minutes, maybe. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, comment down below. Again, if you're curious about those asteroids, what works, let me know. Comment down below and like and subscribe. Thank you very much. I'll see you guys later. Bye.